Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome everybody to the pre-application forum on the 20th of May 2021. This is a remote pre-application forum for Aberdeen Planning, Aberdeen's Sustainable Planning Development Committee. It's a bit of a mouthful. We've got today in front of us a major residential development comprising conversion and direction of approximately 90 units and associated infrastructure at Quattro House, Wellington Circle. The proposal of application notice reference is 210225, and we've got Alex Ferguson. He's the principal officer dealing with it. So I'll maybe ask Alex first of all, and then we'll take in the applicants. From the applicants, we have Steve Crawford from HFM, Neil Harvey from Faro Capital, and Yuming Thompson from HFM. So over to you, Alex.
Thank you, convener. Good afternoon, councillors. I'll just share my screen quickly. Or not so quickly.
Don't worry.
Seems to have changed the layout of how you share stuff overnight.
Well, it's better. I've never tried, so you're ahead of me anyway.
Okay, right. I'll try this.
Alex, I'll try and share the screen. Oh no, that's not working.
Is that working?
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so the proposal we have in front of us at the pre-application forum today relates to the redevelopment of the Quattro House site on Wellington Circle for residential use, comprising the retention and conversion of an existing building and the erection of an additional building to accommodate approximately 90 flats along with associated infrastructure. In terms of its location within a wider context, the site lies at the northern end of the Wellington Business Park, which itself lies to the west of Wellington Road. An area of housing at Redmoss lies to the north, with Altons Industrial Estate to the east and Cove to the southeast. Lochside Academy lies to the west, with Kincorth Hill beyond. The next two slides show the extent of the site and its immediate surroundings in a more localized context. The site occupies the northeastern corner of the Wellington Business Park. It comprises 3 1- and 2-story vacant office buildings that are all linked, with vehicular access taken from Wellington Circle itself, serving the areas of car parking between and to the west of the buildings. There's no vehicular access from Wellington Road to the east. An established tree belt forms the northern boundary of the site, whilst the further tree belt out with the site provides partial screening of the southernmost building from Wellington Road to the east. The neighbouring uses include Wellington House, a vacant 2-story office building to the south, a single-story building to the west occupied by Enerquip and presumed to be in general industrial use, further presumed industrial uses to the west, and the Altons Royal Mail delivery office on the opposite side of the street to the southwest. In terms of the local development plan zoning, the site forms part of the wider Wellington Business Park, which is a business and industrial area covered by policy B1 of the adopted plan. The residential area of Redmoss lies to the north, with opportunity site 61 Calder Park allocated for Lochside Academy and the New Cove Rangers Stadium to the west. Policy B1 of the local development plan seeks that land zoned for business and industrial uses shall be retained for uses within classes 4 business, 5 general industrial, and 6 storage and distribution, and the existing uses shall be safeguarded from other conflicting development types. Policy B1 does not make any provision for residential use. Therefore, the proposal is contrary in principle to policy B1, and it would constitute a departure from the adopted development plan strategy. In terms of the proposed local development plan, the site remains part of a business and industrial land zoning. The land to the west at Calder Park that comprises Opportunity Site 61 in the adopted plan has been rezoned in the proposed plan as an existing community site and facility, with Lochside Academy and the Balmoral Stadium having now been constructed. Policy B1 in the proposed plan remains substantively the same as Policy B1 in the adopted plan. Thus, the proposal would also constitute a departure from the proposed development plan strategy. The next few slides show some images of the site for context. This image shows the central two-storey building when looking southwest from Wellington Road. You can also see the tree belts along the northern boundary and part of the eastern boundary, with the single-storey southern building in the gap in the background. This slide shows the view of the site looking north from Wellington Road. And this slide contains a few images of the site when viewed from Wellington Circle. The top left image shows the vehicular and pedestrian access to the site, with the central two-storey building in the background and the single-storey southern wing in the foreground to the right. The top right image shows the site in the background when viewed from the west outside the neighbouring industrial unit. The bottom right image shows the site in the distance, with the neighbouring vacant Wellington House office building in the foreground to the right. And the bottom left image again shows the site with the main building in the background and the single-storey southern wing to the right. In terms of the pre-application consultation and procedure to date, a proposal of application notice was submitted by the applicant to the council on the 22nd of February. The scope for the applicant's pre-application consultation was agreed with the planning service shortly thereafter, and the online consultation event took place on a dedicated website on the 30th of March, with third parties able to pre-book a slot to have an online discussion with the project team on the day. Plans and information were also made available to view on the website a week in advance of the event, and those plans remain available to view online. Consultation comments and feedback forms could be submitted to the project team until the 13th of April, and following that, the website was updated to include a frequently asked questions section with answers provided. A pre-application consultation report will accompany any formal planning application. The statutory 12-week period for pre-app consultation following on from the submission of a proposal of application notice expired earlier this week. Therefore, an application can now be submitted. The various aspects that would require to be considered in detail as part of any forthcoming application are listed in the report that forms part of the agenda pack. And that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. What I'll maybe do is take the applicant and we'll take questions at the end for either or the app. So can I just hand it to yourself, Mr. Crawford?
Sorry, there's a bit of an echo there. What was? Sorry, I can't.
I think we've got rid of it. It's just if there's more than one mic on,
Okay.
So you can just go.
All right. Okay. All right. I will share my screen too. Let's see if can you see that? Is that
Yeah, it's just coming up now.
all right? Well, thank you very much for letting us present to you this afternoon. I'm Steve Crawford, the Director of Planning at Taldy Fraser Monroe, and presenting with me this afternoon is Neil Harvey from that Faro Capital. We also have Yunming Thompson, who is the Design Director at Taldy Fraser Monroe, to answer some questions on design when we get to that point. And we're actually going to cover some of the same issues as Alex did, so we might be able to skip through some of that. So we're talking about location, bit about the background, that context, and looking at some of the planning design considerations, and eventually we'll get to the proposal towards the end. So in terms of location, you've seen a slide like this not that long ago, and we know where the site is. It's pretty much as Alex described it, at the edge of the current industrial of business location, beside Red Moss Cove, Kingsdorf, Altons. And again, some very similar slide to Alex's. So the main building really is that reverse C-shaped building. I think that's what we're going to call it, just to identify what it is, which is this building in the middle, and that's the building that we propose to retain, with wraparound single-story extension to the north and to the south. And these are some images, again, illustrating some of the same things that Alex has shown you. I thought it was quite important in this image is the central courtyard of this building, which is one of the main reasons that we're coming forward with the proposal we have today, is actually in that courtyard, that's actually a very kind of peaceful, quiet location, and we'll come on back onto that later. Again, just another image looking north from the site across that courtyard. I'm going to pass it on to Neil to talk about some of the background and head towards some of the development options.
Yeah, hi everybody, councillors. So we're a property investment and development company with assets across the UK. We're actually quite heavily invested in Aberdeen. We've got properties, office properties in the Innovation Park, and we also own the Trafalgar site, which I'm not sure if you're aware of. We've just undertaken a demolition of 95,000 square feet of vacant office space, which is we've been trying to let and or sell for 3-4 years. So we're quite a front-thinking business. So we saw the potential in that location of repurposing the site. We've just received an approval for an outline, a PPIP on some of the sites, and we got a submission in for detail planning on the other part of the site for a park of business units in varying sizes from like 1,500 square feet to larger units. So we are committed to redeveloping that site to basically regenerate what has been an empty space for many years. We're going to build sort of 90,000 square feet of business units, which is going to create employment. We're calling it Altons Gate because it is located as the gateway into Altons. It'll complement the new building next door, which is the new Wood Group building. This Hennis Road is going to be the access to the harbour. So it's a fitting sort of gateway, if you like, into what is a new zone. Again, Aberdeen is trying to remarket itself as a green energy centre, and we hope to be part of that journey on that site. So we are, we are very familiar with the economy of Aberdeen. This particular building we've been marketing for 4 or 5 years. It's actually a pretty good building, but there is no take up for 45,000 square foot of offices in this location. The market just isn't there. However, having been speaking with Steve and the architects from HFM, we realised that actually the building is quite a good building, and we thought about repurposing rather than demolishing. Demolishing is, it's a difficult decision to take. As we did with Trafalgar, it was the only option. So here, because of its location, its context, it's situated in what has become a mixed-use area. It's right next door to residential. You've got the Lockside, I think it's called Lockside redevelopment, just to the south. So we are looking to repurpose and regenerate what is an empty building, and the only market which we believe is there for it, but what the location also suits is residential. And it was Steve's idea to look at repurposing the building. So I'll hand back over to him now to talk through that process. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. So clearly, when we looked at this building originally, we did look at it for its original purpose and a range of other purposes, as Neil said. Market issues led us down a different path. So in terms of looking at the site, you also clearly, when you start looking at the site, we look at it in its context. And to do that, we clearly looked at existing land uses. We understand its business. That's what it is. That's what it's zoned as. But also, it's surrounded by a number of different land uses. So you have the residential uses at Red Moss and Cove, leisure, which include Pure Gym, Cove Rangers, retail, IKEA, Macro, Sainsbury's just in the road at Charleston. We've got commercial uses in there, offices, industrial, distribution, restaurants, drive-throughs. There is a whole range of different uses in there. But it's also an accessible site. It's good public transport, it's good walking and cycling access, and it's got local shops, employment nearby, and a good connection to a green network, including community woodland just across the road, good path networks, and wider green assets. Clearly, we've got to look at the planning considerations of it, and again, this is similar to a slide Alex showed earlier, which is showing that actually around this site, which is identified as the red dot, there you've got a range of different land uses very close to it, including residential, really just adjacent. I won't go through these because Alex has kind of covered those, but you have the large Lauriston redevelopment to the southwest, and suggest. So in terms of the planning considerations, then we think, of course, brownfield first. So that's in line with Scottish planning policy. And we also think priority is in line with the priority for reuse of existing buildings, which is emerging through NPF4 and makes sense. You've got an existing building, and why demolish it and start again if you can reuse it? Sustainable reuse and repurposing could contribute to the city's net zero vision. And looking at the surrounding uses, we also think it fits with the 20-minute neighbourhood, which is coming through NPF4 and government policy. And that diagram on the right is the 20-minute neighbourhood diagram. So some of the elements that come out of that are things like local employment opportunities, local public transport, safe cycling networks, walkability, housing diversity, affordable housing options, sport and recreation, local schools. It fits that, and it conforms to that approach in terms of location at least. And as Neil said, there's no market interest in the current use. And that all suggests to us the potential to consider this for alternative residential development. Adaptive reuse considered efficient and sustainable. And also, as a brownfield housing site, it could contribute towards the city's target in terms of brownfield housing delivery. We also have to look at design considerations, of course, because we're aware that the site isn't a residential site at the moment. But as I said, sustainable, we're going to keep the main building. I think that's a sustainable main use, reuse of that building. The single-storey extensions to the north don't really work around the building, so they're being removed. And we're going to use the existing access points and generally the existing car park areas. We also have to consider how we deal with high-quality finishes to change the character of that office building, because clearly it is an office building, and it needs to be different if it's going to be residential. We have to consider attractive areas for amenity, green space, landscaping. We're doing all that at the moment. And as I said before, that creating that private south-facing courtyard is really quite important. There are well-established boundaries already, but we know we have to strengthen those to make the site work and promote safe pedestrian and cycle access through the site, the surrounding area, including the public transport on Wellington Road, core path network, and links to the community woodland to the east, and connections to leisure, retail, community and employment nearby to help encourage a sustainable mixed-use community approach. That's illustrated a little in this diagram, which identifies some of the key elements. So the dark blue dashed line is the pedestrian and cycle links to the core paths and through existing path networks. The yellow circle is the existing crossing point across Wellington Road. And we've got a solid blue line here on the site, which is basically the connection, pedestrian and cycle connection through to Wellington Road, not a vehicular access. The vehicular access is, as Alex said, using the existing access. And we're talking about new boundaries to provide buffers between uses. And we did look at precedents. So, when we started looking at this idea, we were looking across the UK. And there's a couple here just to illustrate a point. There's Herschel Street in Annie's Land in Glasgow, which the befores on the left and the afters on the right. That I think got consent in 2018. But it shows you the difference between the existing office building and what the new residential building could look like, new flats could look like. At the bottom, a London example, showing the existing building on the left, and the actual building as it was delivered on the right. So they were just some of the precedents that we're looking for. They're just showing an example of what you can do with an existing office building in terms of improving it for residential purposes. So our proposal then really is to remove the existing facade of the current office, retain the core of the building, replace the facade with additional levels on top and additional balcony spaces. And this is an early indicative site layout, which shows the existing main office, the reverse C-shaped building, we called it from the beginning, is redeveloped as apartments. Single-story additions to the north and south that are there already removed. The new housing block to the south, which includes 25% affordable. Parking open space to standard. Landscape areas around the building. Development to enhance the existing amenity. That internal courtyard, which was the instigator of this, when Neil and I stood in the middle of it and said, well, what do we do here? That internal courtyard of the main building has become a peaceful pedestrianised entrance into the main block, and also a key focus on providing opportunities for pedestrian and cycle movement and connections via public transport, and making sure that the car access element of it is secondary. It comes in from the back of the site. Just to finish off, we have produced an early indicative illustration of what that reverse C-shaped building might look like in the main office building. But this is an early illustration, but it just provides an example of what can be done with that building, potentially if it was converted for residential use. And I think that's it really. So thank you, and we're happy to take any questions. Just stop here.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve. That was really informative. Members, can I ask have you got questions for either the applicant or for planning officer Alex?
Yes, please.
Councillor Copeland's got his hand and Councillor Gray.
Okay, Councillor Copeland, then I'll take Councillor Greg.
Yeah, thank you. You've shown us an illustration of what the main building will look like. Have you got an illustration of what the other building will look like?
Steve?
Not yet. We're working through the feasibility on the project at the moment, so we don't have an illustration, but we will have for the application and when it comes forward.
Right. So can I just confirm the total site, you're looking at 90 units, is that right?
Yeah, that's what we said, approximately 90 units, around that number. Yeah.
You said 25% affordable. So is your intention to have all the affordable houses in the second block or within the main block?
Yes.
What's that? Yes to the second block?
Yes, the second block, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Councillor Greg?
Thank you, convener. Our planning policies are there to ensure that we try and design attractive and desirable housing and residential areas. So I'm sure that aim is core to this proposal. I wanted to ask about connectivity. There is to the north, there's the Red Moss housing. So first of all, does the redesignation of this site as residential, is that intended to link to the residential area to the north at Red Moss in some way, so that there's a kind of a linkage there? So that's kind of that's kind of a first question, but related to that, there was a slide amongst the design considerations that indicated transport routes. So, for example, there was walking and cycling, which seemed to come out straight out onto a dual carriageway. It does seem that the connectivity is an issue. So I'd welcome any further information on those points.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, anybody? I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, so there is a path to the north of the site, and we do intend to put a path from our development into that. In terms of the dual carriageway, that there's a major pedestrian crossing there, a traffic light, cycle and pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, and it links into there's a core path, which is on the eastern side of Wellington Road. It links into that, and then there's another link through into the Red Moss, a pathway link through into the Red Moss area. And the links from this site supposed to come out towards Wellington Road, but the footpath along Wellington Road is remote from the side of the road. It would connect to that and back into this wider connection of footpath and cycle network. So there would be a linkage to it.
Okay, it's an area that I only know from passing through, really. Also, from that location, there is Lochside Academy to the west or southwest. That would be a safe walking route to and from school, I presume, or would aspire to be. Is that right?
Yeah, it's within Wellington Circle, so literally it's a walk south within that area. So you're not going out onto any main roads.
Right. And what is the primary school zoned for there? Is it I don't want to guess.
Primary school is,
I believe it's Kirkhill.
Kirkhill. Yeah.
Okay, and that's okay.
Is there a new? Sorry.
It's just reassuring to know that you're addressing all of these issues.
Yeah, we'll be covering those in the planning application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gregg. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, I got a couple of questions. First, to the applicant. You're going to be using I should have said thank you for the presentation at the start. It was very good. Thank you. You'll be using the existing car parking spaces. Given that this is a fairly old site that's been empty for 5 years, I'm assuming there's no EV charge points there. Will you be intending to put something in?
The car parking essentially is going to stay in the areas that it is, but it's going to be reduced in number, which is a key thing. And answer your question specifically, yes, in all our developments across the country, we're putting in electric charge points.
Great, thanks.
And actually in our current office buildings, we're doing the same.
Good, that's great. That's good to hear. And in terms of broadband, are you looking fibre to the premises?
That's something I haven't looked at, but we certainly will. Okay.
And then I've got a question for officers, which is potentially an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway. Given that this would be a departure from policy B1, is it potentially nonetheless approvable? Because sometimes we get pre-app forum papers and you think, why on earth are they talking? Because it's just so completely at odds with the existing plan. I can't understand how anyone's even contemplating it. Mm-hmm. Whereas, without putting words in your mouth, Alex, a suitable application might potentially be approvable here for a residential. Or is that an unfair question?
We would obviously need to see the detail of any application that comes in. So we wouldn't want to. I'm afraid I'm going to have to give you a politician's answer here and say that we would need to to look at the detail of an application when it comes in, but and then obviously judge the proposal on its own merits against all of the relevant material considerations. So apologies for that slimy answer.
Can I?
That's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Councillor Cook, would you like me to add to that, to your question?
By all means.
Obviously, we did a pre-app for the purpose that you highlighted, and we felt what is quite a large investment to take this to planning was a positive path to take, because these things do cost a lot of money.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's my questions done.
Okay. Any other questions? I have some, but I just want to make sure the rest of the committee, I'm not seeing any other hands. Clearly, it has been a sort of a next to industrial use at the moment. So in terms of the neighbouring sites, and obviously you can't get away from the fact that you're opposite the post office, which operates, I believe, 24 hours a day. In terms of how that's compatible with a residential setting, and I'm aware that, obviously one of the buildings, which I think from your comments to Councillor Copeland, is the affordable housing is going to be nearest to the one site, which is a sort of a commercial operation. So it's really just to understand, your mindset around mitigating these factors, because you can't get away from the fact that the post office operates 24 hours a day, and it's about the quality of amenity for residents living there that is my main concern. I'm very supportive of reusing brownfield sites, but it's just about making sure that anything we do use, that the amenity for both, because you don't want businesses feeling they're being pushed out either because of we're constantly complaining about the noise. So it's just understanding how you've thought around that areas, or those areas, should I say.
Steve or Yun?
I don't mind who it is.
We're obviously aware of those issues, and that's part of the came back. So things like noise and traffic and are important in terms of how we're looking at the site, and being able to create private, quiet spaces. But actually, when you get on the site and stand in the middle of the site, it isn't as noisy as you think it might be. Mm-hmm. The buildings in there create barriers to that noise and barriers to views and etc. So we think that the scale and the type of spaces and amenity that you create in there would be suitable for residential. But clearly, we're going to have to consider the issues of noise and buffers towards other uses to try and protect them, as well as the residential use as much as anything else. And that's all part of what we're doing just now. So we think it's possible to do it, and that'll be part of the application in terms of noise impact and traffic and open space requirements and the amenity side of it. But we definitely think it's possible. Okay.
Can I just ask as well, obviously we're talking about 90 units, but we don't know of what kind of configuration. Are you seeing this as more kind of less family orientated and more kind of maybe young people who are looking at, a first foot in the ladder type of thing, or what's your target audience or market for this accommodation?
Do you want to answer that, Yumin, in terms of the layout and?
Well, it's just that we obviously have questions around the schooling aspects in terms of for us, we have to understand what the capacities are like at the school, and obviously I think Councillor Gregg's question was about children having to cross Wellington Road if they have to go over to Cove for their primary education. We know where Lochside is from a secondary point of view, but I suppose it's just understanding the kind of functional use of this accommodation, i.e. are you targeting families? So what's the sort of the area around that for young children to play out in? and to attract the school, or are you thinking more like the young professionals, or so it's just to understand, because for me, I need to, if we've got post vans going back and forth all the time, and you've got young children around that area, so it's just about understanding where your target market is with these types of flats, and is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms? So it's just, I suppose, just having a better understanding of your concept that you're promoting here.
I can answer that. We're currently sitting about sort of 10% 3-bedroom flats. They would be a lot of them are sort of main door as well, with their own garden space. The majority are probably 80% at 2-bedroom flats. So I think we're definitely seeing where it's perhaps not so much families we'd be targeting. It would be student market or young professionals that are looking for a sort of executive nice flat with a balcony space. I think that would be more a target market, and then again about 10%, 12% 1-bedroom flats as well.
Okay, that's really helpful to understand. And I assume you'll have all the usual cycle sheds and refuge places for the bins and things like that. I'm sure that goes without saying.
Yeah, we've got bin stores, cycle stores, and also I think we've made some amendments so that we've got far fewer single-sided flats. If there's certainly no north-facing single-sided flats anymore. A lot of them are most flats are dual aspect now.
Okay, that's really good to know. Councillor Copeland, I noticed you've indicated again. Are you there, Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Camilla.
Your head just appeared.
Just trying to get the technology to work. The mix of housing types you put in, is that going to be across the affordable as well, or is the affordable to be all one type?
Do you want to get that, Yummy?
Yeah. Yes. No. The mix applies to both the private and the affordable. So there'll be larger 3-bedroom flats suitable for families, and again, most of them 2 beds and a few 1-bed flats. So the mix will be across both affordable and private.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gray. Oh, sorry, Neil. Were you wanting to say something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Thank you.
No, the other Neil. Sorry, Neil, not you.
No, I just wanted to add to Young Min's sort of description of the design motivation, and one of the thing is, during COVID, a lot of people have been in flats a lot with outdoor space. Mm-hmm. So we've tried to focus on as many balconies or step out outdoor space as possible.
Okay.
So I think flatted livings has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I come back a wee bit?
Oh, sorry, Neil. Neil C, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that, Martin. You've referred to as private and affordable. Are you looking for a social housing provider for the affordable housing, or are you going to market that as well?
No, we'd be happy to talk to a registered provider.
Okay, thank you. Let me finish now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Landscaping can contribute towards the quality of a housing development. There's currently a tree belt along to the north. There are some trees along the border with Wellington Road, and internally, I mean, there's a lot of car parking spaces, but there is some shrubbery internally. What are the proposals for plantings and so forth, which might help to soften some of that sense of concrete in the area?
Well, at the moment we are we're above the required amenity space per person, and that doesn't include the tree belts, the existing tree belts or verges, or it's all usable space. We have an in-house landscape architect at Haldry Fraser Munro, and we'd be looking to utilise her services to come up with a scheme that creates zones of different areas. So the courtyard area, there'd be private space outside ground floor flats. there'd be and then there'd be we'd look to create a range of sort of different types of areas. So the courtyard area might feel different to the areas that are closer to the tree zones, for example. So that will again be developed as we head towards planning applications.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be nice to maximise the green element in the proposal, and perhaps you're also going to be thinking about play areas, rest areas, and I don't know, communal gardens for residents.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We will consider all those things and make use of the space. And it's, you know, create zones outside the flats between the car parking and the flats, obviously, to make that those nice spaces.
Great, many thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? I'm not seeing any more hands. Not missing anybody, am I? No. Okay. Well, I think that concludes today's pre-app forum, and you know, really appreciate that you've come along today. Oh, I've got a message. I just need to check. No, that's okay. That's fine. Something else. But no, thank you for coming along today. And obviously, it's given us food for thought. And hopefully, some of our comments and concerns will maybe give you food for thought. You know, and let's see where all this goes. All right.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Thank you again for attending.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Cheerio.
Bye. Bye.